You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. Hey, Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So it sounds like you have an encounter of yours to share.
Yes, I have an encounter. I'm originally from Texas. I live in New England now, but I lived on the Brazos River, right, if you know where Lake Whitney is. I lived in the first house that was on the side of the dam, and I was really young, like 19 years old. But my husband, he worked in Dallas, so he would leave every morning at like 3 o'clock in the morning to go to Dallas to go to work, 3 to 4. And we lived right on the river, and there was docks out there, and I would go out and sit. And I'd been raised in Texas and lived in different places, but I started hearing things running across the river, and you could hear the thump of the feet, and I just got chills. And after I heard the sound of it running, I heard it climbing up. Something was climbing up. There was like a big hill, not a mountain, but a big hill. And so this went on for like 3 days, 3 different times. I heard it. I couldn't see it because it's pitch black. But my husband and I had told him about it, and we decided we were going to do some investigating of our own. And so we went, and this area is between Waco and Whitney. And at that time, it was like 40 miles of nothing, just a few farms. And we started walking in the woods. And the first thing we noticed that there was no birds or anything making any sound. And we started smelling horrible, horrible smells. And as we were walking, we found a dead horse. And the thing about the horse is it was missing its head. And so we saw the first dead horse. We kept walking. Evidently weren't too smart at that time. But anyway, we kept walking. And then there was another dead horse. And at about that time, we heard some movement, but it wasn't a movement like what you would think. It was more like a brush of air. And my husband, he's passed at this time, but he was an avid hunter, avid sportsman. And I've never seen someone so scared in my life. I mean, we both took off running, and we ran and ran and ran. And to make a long story short, we lived there for about a year, and I heard this thing several times, never went back up into those mountains or hills to look for it because it was a terrifying experience. And then I was in Oregon. I tried to go on with you live a while back, but I was in Oregon. I had cancer, and I had surgery in Washington. Then I recovered in Oregon. It's on the coast. And I was staying at my friend's house, and right on the ocean, which, you know, that's where it was, Waldport, Oregon, which has Bigfoot on their sign, local city sign. And my friend, her husband is a firefighter, and they were working some fires in Oregon, and I was covering from surgery. I'd spent 5 weeks in the hospital, and I had 150 staples in my leg, and I couldn't walk. And I was watching their dog, and I'm in the woods in Oregon, and they have these windows that I couldn't stand, but you couldn't close them. You couldn't close curtains. You couldn't close the blind. And the dog was just a little, like Pekingese dog, a really small dog. She started going crazy, and something was running around the house. It was on, it just sounded like a person running, but whatever it was, it ran around the house several times. I ended up turning off all the lights, going to the back bedroom, and kind of like barricading myself in the room, because I'm like, the whole town had that area of Waldport is about like 50 miles from Corvallis, and that area there, they only had like one state trooper that worked that whole area. And I'm like, there's no one to call. What am I going to do? And anyway, so that was my experience with Bigfoot. And I really do think that they're real. And I do think that they're interdimensional because of the sound that I heard in Texas, the brush of air or rush of air. I don't know how you would say it, but it was real, and it wasn't a sound that I'd ever heard or that I've heard since. That it just felt like something was moving in a different area that I wasn't going. And I do believe they're interdimensional, and I think the veil is lifting, and I think that there will continue to be sightings, and evidently they're pretty smart creatures, and I don't know what their role is here on Earth. You know, who knows where they come from, if they're Nephilim, if they're from that area, or if that's where they came from, or what started, you know, with the children of the angels and the things that they became. I don't know if these were spin-offs from that or what happened, but they're definitely not on the same level of this earth as we are. I think that's just my opinion as far as who knows what they are.
It's one of the most interesting topics because there's so many different ways of looking at it. But you know, one thing is for sure, there's something out there that we're at most times not able to see. Sometimes we are able to see them, though, for sure. Now, in Lake Whitney, Texas, when you saw those two horses, um, were there, you said neither of them had heads. Were they cut off or torn off, or could you tell?
The first horse I couldn't tell because it was too far gone, as far as everything not being there. But the second horse, it looked like, and I had horses and showed horses from Matlock Rose out of North Texas. If anyone watches Yellowstone, that's where all the horses and stuff from that show came from, was North Texas. And the horse's head was ripped off. It wasn't cut. It was jagged. It didn't look like a bite. It looked like something just ripped the head off.
Wow. I mean,
So
you think about it, what kind of things can do that, right? I mean, there's not many that come to my mind. Some weird
yeah,
stuff. I'm glad you
yeah,
guys got out of there for
and
sure.
and yeah, it was a bad feeling, and the whole experience ended up us living there on the house. It was just a bad experience, and I never want to live in Lake Whitney again. But after this Bigfoot thing happened, I was in the house, and you know, I didn't have a car with me. We didn't have a phone, and this was back in like 1985.
Around that area in Texas, did you ever talk to any other neighbors that had things going on as well?
Yes, we did. They're all passed away now. You know, the old timers that used to live there and everything. And it's such an area that is so just desolate. It used to have more, you know, it was greener and all of that, but now it's just becoming more and more arid and dry. And Texas is turning into a desert in some places. But there was a lot of people that had seen some things and heard things, but people don't delve into it. And I don't know why, but it's something about it that's almost sacred that you just didn't. At that time, we didn't delve into it too much. Get
I,
an eerie feeling when I was in the area.
mm, I appreciate you coming up and for sharing. Is this a conversation that I would be able to use on my Bigfoot podcast I have?
Sure, it's fine. I don't have any rights or anything over the story. I'm just a crazy woman from Texas living in New Hampshire now in the mountains again, but I haven't seen anything
Wow.
here. But yeah, you can use my story.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for saying thank you and about the experiences, because I've really never talked to anyone other than like my sons and my close family about it. And the smell was, it wasn't a sulfur smell. And I don't know if it was the smell from the horses or if it was a smell from a creature. I don't know which one it was. Of course, the horses smelled really bad, but I don't know if it was the horses or if it was the creature. I don't know. But I do know that something was running along that riverbank, because at night, they would generate through the night and the water would go down really fast. I mean, fish get caught, and, when the water drops, it goes down really fast. And so there was only a certain time period that it would have had a chance to go down onto the river and then get back up into the mountains before the water came back up.
Absolutely.
So there was just a small time period there.
Well, Lisa, I appreciate you coming up. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And you guys have a good night.
Hi there. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Did you have a Bigfoot experience you'd like to share?
I did. So, have you ever heard of the Hotel California in Kentucky?
Is that by Land Between the Lakes?
It is.
Yes.
So, I was out there with a couple of friends and we heard tree knocking and screams. At first, we thought somebody was like messing with us because there was other people in the area. But then later, we meet them in the parking lot whenever we're getting ready to leave. And they said that they heard the exact same thing.
Now, that's the big abandoned building area, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because there's been other stuff that's happened in the same area, right?
Yeah, there was a supposed werewolf attack in the 80s.
That's right. Yep. It's the same area. Wow. Wow. So you experienced tree knocking. Was there anything else weird going on at the same time?
It smelled like two skunks dead. Whenever I was headed back towards the parking lot, towards my car, my friend looked at me and he said, "Hey, do you smell that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it smells like a dead skunk or animal or something." And then after the tree knocking, like 5 minutes later, we just hear the most blood-curdling scream.
Hmm. Have you heard of any other recent things that have happened in that area besides because I believe that the Dogman attack was in the 80s, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, yes, there was a Dogman attack in the 80s.
Is that an area you go to pretty often to check it out?
Actually, that was my first time going to the Hotel California. I didn't expect to hear what I thought was a Sasquatch at the time either. I was actually going to take pictures and I was actually going there to spray paint, but I went there to take some pictures too. And then my friends and I started hearing like banging on trees, and at first we just thought it was the other tourists like messing with us.
Hmm.
And and then we hear the scream, and then later we relocate to like a because it was starting to get dark, so we go to like a beach, and we see like footprints on the beach, like human footprints, but like they were like the size of my foot and my half of my friend's foot put together.
Um, what length would you say that approximately would be?
14, if I had to guess, I'd say 14 to 15 inches.
Gotcha. And you said that was pretty recent. that this experience
Uh,
happened?
Back in June, yes, sir.
June of 2025, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Would you ever go back to that area again after experiencing that?
If I'm by myself, no. If I'm with my friends, maybe.
Well, I appreciate you coming up to share what you experienced. Is this a conversation I can share in my podcast as well?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for coming up. If you ever do experience anything else out there, please feel free to reach out.
All right, yes, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good stuff. Good stuff. We're going from one side of the U.S. to the other, guys. Lisa, I just sent you a request if you want to share your uncle's story there.
Yeah.
Hello again.
Okay. Hello. Um, well, I was born in Gainesville, Texas. I don't know if you guys know where that is, but it's right on the Texas-Oklahoma border, Red River. There used to be a tow bridge there, and they called it the old tow bridge. It's since gone. You know, there used to be river boats that went up and down the Red River. And there's a lot of houses and things that were up in the hills that were abandoned after the riverboat stopped. And so my aunt and my uncle, they'd go scavenging through those places and find a lot of things. But my uncle, he was my mom's older brother, and my mom was born in 1927, so he was like 10 years older than my mom. So he would have been born in like 1920 or somewhere in that area. And Uncle Bud was his name. He was Osage Indian. He was, and we said Indian. I don't mean to offend anyone. They say Native American now, but back when I grew up and we were Native Americans and we were Indians, no one said Native American. It wasn't a thing back then. But anyway, he told me a story about when he was down in the Red River area. There's a lake there called Leaper Lake, and it's where a bunch of rich people go and hunt and fish and things like that. And this was basically, this doesn't happen anymore, but I was like 13 years old at the time, and he was teaching me how to drive 3 on the tree. We're out just kind of roaming the backwoods in Texas and Oklahoma. And he was telling me where to go and everything. We went and we stopped on this bridge, and it was an iron bridge. And he had just a very interesting man. He went to World War II. He had a Purple Heart, and he never talked about it in life. But I had my mom's Bible, and I was going through the Bible, and then I opened it up, and there's his Purple Heart award there. And but he said he and his friends were out on that bridge as teenagers did back in the 1920s or 30s. And he said that they were there, and the bridge was at that time, about 10 feet up. And he said they were all on the bridge, and they started hearing something down in the river, by the river. And the Red River has quicksand, and that's one river I'd never even go in, the Red River and Trinity River, really anywhere river anymore. But so they were on this bridge, and he said that they kept hearing these things, like something was like throwing things down in the riverbed. And they're still on the bridge at that time, and they're trying to figure out what it is. And then they were getting real quiet. And he said that something walked up, or I don't even know how to tell it, but he said that the thing was so tall that his eyes were over the bridge, and his eyes were red. And this was way back before, like, flashlights. People didn't have flashlights back then. This was lanterns or nothing. But he told me that story and, took me there, and it was quite an experience. And I never thought that I would experience one like that. But no, I don't live in the area anymore. I'm in New Hampshire. Someone had asked, but no, I don't live there. But I was born and raised in Gainesville, Texas. My dad migrated from Italy, and it's like, welcome to America. you're in the United States Army, and he was sent to a German POW camp called Camp Hood. And my mother was Native, and the reservation backed up to where the German POW camp was. And my mom and her friends would go look at the German men because they were so beautiful. And she ended up meeting my dad there at the POW camp.
Wow,
So
that's an
just a
incredible
small
story.
story.
My goodness. That area you were talking about, like, is that around Thackerville?
Yes, it's between Thackerville and the Texas-Oklahoma border, Red River, right there.
Yeah,
Pretty
so
much a lot of nothing.
that area today, or I would say in the last 10 years, by Bigfoot researchers is called purgatory, because the encounters that come out of that area with Bigfoot are, I would say, the most aggressive I've ever heard. I've interviewed a few people from that area, and it's a very, very sketchy area that I would not recommend anyone just go in by themselves. It's pretty wild.
I um, I wouldn't go in those woods. I mean, and also you had the goat man, that story that came from that area. Actually, that was more around White Rock Lake in Fort Worth. But the goat man was this creature that was half man, half goat, and it was just, I don't know if it's true, but it was a fable when I was a kid. And back then wrestling was a big thing, and I remember we went to a wrestling match, and this guy was, his thing was, he was the goat man. This was the time during like Andre the Giant, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Von Erichs, the wrestlers, but
Yep.
anyway, the goat man was going to fight in this thing, and I remember sitting with my mom and dad. I'm like 4 years old, and I was just terrified. I'm like, is this man going to kill all of us, or is this goat man going to take us all out? But he was a scary looking guy. He kind of looked like what Howard Hughes looked. Have you ever seen pictures of him right before his death? He had the long nails and the long hair. That's what the goat man that I saw was, the goat man. And another place is Maxdale Bridge outside of Killeen, Texas. It washed away during the floods in July, but it was probably the most, and I my hair stands up and my voice trembles because it was a place that there was something definitely real. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely real, and you could feel the dimensions. That's the only way I know how to say it, but the Maxdale Bridge, if anyone knows about it, you can look it up. It's not about Bigfoot. It's more about ghosts and hauntings.
There's so many weird stories from Texas and southern Oklahoma, but you had something about the Goatman Bridge, you were saying?
Yes, the Goatman Bridge. Well, they called it the Goatman Bridge, but there's different places that I've heard about it. But the one that we went to was in outside of Killeen, Texas, and just it was called Maxdale Bridge, and it is a bridge that borders a cemetery, and it's been closed off. You couldn't drive on the bridge. And my family and we went out there because we had heard all these stories, and my son had told me a story that I thought he was crazy, but there's a story about a flying squirrel, but it wasn't spelt squirrel. It was more like squire. And that's just something that my son saw and heard. I didn't, but he was pretty terrified of that place. And he's like, let's go there. My younger son was playing hockey in Austin, so we'd drive by there, drove 100 miles to take my son to hockey. And my son's like, well, we need to go there. So we went there one night after we got out of hockey practice, and it was a scary night, and definitely something there. I don't know what, but something.
My goodness. Thank you for sharing some stories from your family history as well. I appreciate that, Lisa. Is this second conversation one I can use as well?
Sure. Yeah, you can use it.
Well, thank you for coming up again. I am gonna check in with. I've got, when you know it, we all of a sudden we got a ton of people wanting to come up, and but I appreciate you coming up again. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Good. Thank you.
Lisa has some great stories. My goodness. Hey, Wade, how are you, man?
Great, great. It's good to be speaking with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. How are things out there?
Oh, well, working too much as usual. That's normal. Have to
Absolutely.
tell you about the museum I went to in Boring, Oregon.
Okay.
What a great resource of information. Um, it's hard to articulate what a great thing that that museum is. Um, I got there and nobody was there, and then it got really packed. But what the information as you walk through, they have casts and photos and locations and the stories of how they got the different casts in there, and it was absolutely fascinating. And I went on a motorcycle ride from Redmond, Oregon to Boring, which is
Mm.
a fantastic ride. And the two men that were working in there at the time were very decent people, very likable and approachable. And I kind of made a small mistake. I told them that we had them on the property for 4 years in Rainier,
Wow.
Oregon, when I was very young. And they were absolutely thrilled to speak to me about that. And we didn't agree to speak again about it, and because
Mhm.
they were busy and working at the time, and I can appreciate that. And you go in there and they'll give you a pin, and you put the pin on it where you had your sighting. And I was shocked at how many pins in the Pacific Northwest they had on their map. And it's a map of the entire United States, but it is absolutely stunning. In some spots, you can't put a pin anymore in
Mhm.
that area.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the
And
that just in case people haven't made the connection, the North American Bigfoot Center is a really cool place. I was able to go there in July. It was awesome.
it is absolutely awesome. And it's a place where you can bring your whole family, because certainly I was the only singular individual there. It was all families. Everybody was smiling and thrilled. And it was great vibes. Like I said, the two men working in there were wonderful.
Hmm.
I understand it's owned by Cliff. Forgive me, I don't remember his last name.
The Cliff
Uh,
Barrickman. Yep.
Thank you, thank you. And I was kind of hoping to see him, and they said no. He gets here, kind of sporadically. And I said, well, as long as he gets there on payday, everything's kosher, right? And then of course we had a good laugh,
Right.
and and um, and it's right off the freeway. It's so there's big signs on the highway, pretty easy to find. And what I thought it might, in all fairness, I kind of had to steel myself a little bit when I rode up there to think, I'm almost 60 years old, and
Mm.
I'm not a Gen Zer. I don't get, like, with all due respect, I don't get like triggered, right?
Hmm.
I really don't
Yeah.
have those. But I had to really steel myself before I walked in there. And after a few minutes, I thought, you know what? This is fantastic. Um, and let me qualify that. Say that you have seen Bigfoot or a little bit, or you have seen them a couple of times or whatever. And you walk in there and you can educate yourself on thinking, okay, I'm not an idiot. That's exactly what I've seen. And it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I seen one of these things and it looks like this. And there in this location is where it was.
Mm.
And it is a fantastic tool to walk in there and say, you know what? I'm not crazy and it's okay. And this and you can educate yourself. Certainly, they have a profound amount of information, as you've seen when you walk in there,
It's a lot.
and it's a lot to take in. And so, and of course, I bought my girl a T-shirt. I bring her back a T-shirt, because the old saying, "Hey, bring me back a T-shirt." I splurged and bought one of the castings that they have in a clear glass case right there. They had
Sure.
a little under a dozen. And of course, it's not the original. And I understand that. The original is being studied, it's off being looked at. And I didn't keep it because I've seen it before. I'm okay with that. But, and I gave it to one of my peers who is very interested. And I'm glad I had a trunk on the back of that BMW big enough for this cast. And it's just it's a very visceral thing to hold in your hands. They put a little card in there before they wrapped it saying, this cast was cast in this location on this date, and it's a right foot. But it is an uncanny thing. Even as a gift, I gave it to one of my friends that I respect a lot. And but it's still, there was that moment standing out in the parking lot holding this thing, even in the bubble wrap, was it was quite jarring and it's a very visceral experience. So, and at the end of the day, I went in there, had a fantastic time, lovely people, and I spent money there to help that place continue.
It's worth it. It is absolutely worth it to support them. I got to ask you, was it hard being in front of Murphy like that because of your history?
No, Murphy kind of looked like the large female that I was in practice of seeing at least maybe once a month, sometimes once every 2 months. She was a little shorter than the male and blocky, and that's what Murphy looked like. But she was no problem. She always, the girl, my sister's seen her more often than any of the two younger ones or the large males. So, but there was a moment of pause before I stepped through that doorway past the countertop, where I really had to steel myself.
The crazy thing about that area is that it is so close to some really, really high activity Bigfoot locations,
And that's exactly what they told me verbatim. And any rational person, once you get past the reservation and you hit the tree line and start going over Mount Hood, you're like, okay, well, yeah, that's absolutely.
Wow. Man, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm glad that you're doing well. Is this a conversation I can use for the show if I decide
Oh,
to?
I would be delighted.
Okay.
And
Okay. Well,
and a
thank you
little
for coming
fun.
up.
Thank you. Yeah, you're doing great on your podcast, and I jump on whenever I can.
Always good to talk to you. We'll connect in the future as well. You have a good one, man.
Absolutely. You have a good evening. Bye bye.
Hey, Scott, how are you, sir?
Hey man, what's a good word? So here's the deal.
All right.
Here's what I know. So I'm 58, lifetime Pacific Northwest, lifetime hunter. Never seen anything, never heard anything. Brothers never seen anything, really heard anything. But that was more down in the lower Willamette Valley in Oregon. Okay, and so then I ended up getting a job in 1990, matter of fact, in Stevenson. And that Stevenson is in Skamania County. Okay.
Yep.
And I was in radio equipment, and I got to know all these real, not old, but these old enforcement deputies that worked for the county sheriff. And me, and they had all and they were all 20, 25 year plus guys, and if you get to know these guys, they're very factual, meaning short of if they don't see it, it didn't happen. If it's not on film, it didn't happen. They're very literal, all of them, and in that group that they were in, not me, but what they were in, and you never want to spout out something odd, like I saw UFOs, which none of them believe. Yeah, that's another thing that they're very kind of what the ones that I talked to didn't believe in. But the one thing that they did say is this, and it was very interesting. I have a few other stories about the Bigfoot thing. Is they all had the ones that I talked, they all had the same similar stories. They never had a dead-on look, but they were driving along way up high in the county. It was called North County, and they would catch something like what? Like something was like, hey, they saw a flash, and it was never a confirmed thing, and that was always what it was. And then even during that time, I remember there were 3 Native Americans up in the county next to Skamania, which is, I can't even remember what it was, and they had said that they had trapped one in National, and I remember National Geographic. It was huge, big deal, and then it turned out that it had been nothing. But it's a weird thing up there in Skamania County. It is.
The things I've heard out of Skamania County are absolutely wild because people have to realize if you don't know the area, you're talking about from down the Columbia River, all the way up to Mount St. Helens and a little bit north of it. It's a crazy amount of area.
It is huge. And that's one thing that people don't realize is just how big it is. It's enormous. But and this is an odd story of how this item got here in 1990. Matter of fact, people were kind of into like extreme camping. They'd go out and camp for like 2 weeks,
Mhm.
like 15 miles and that kind of stuff. Well, I got to know some other guy, and he was like, hey man, I went on this extreme camp, and I found something cool, I'm like, well, what is it? And he had found, and I mean way out in the middle, we're like 50 miles out in the middle of, he found a true, and I looked it up, it still has the serial numbers on it, a true World War One American dagger, just shoved in the ground. The wood handles had rotted away, and it was just sitting there, and they were out there, and I mean in the middle of nowhere, and he found that. He was just stunned. It's like, and so I'm like, well, how on earth? So I got a hold of the county guys and said, well, how is the military out there? And they're like, heck no, nothing's out there. And so I sent some guys, military people that knew like these serial numbers, and it was a World War One U.S. bayonet that someone had stuck out there long, and even better, when I left in 92, my friend gave me the bayonet, and I still have it. And I still have it. And so what I'm getting at too, you don't know what's out there. I mean, it's like, and you just don't know, man. And I know I'm rambling on, but I've seen your show, and I always kind of wanted to get on and tell you what I knew. But
Well, I appreciate you doing so. I mean, there's so many. I mean, we've both heard the wild stuff about this area, the legends, and certain areas are crazier than others, and Skamania maybe, and it's just it is a wild area. I appreciate you coming up and sharing what you heard over the years.
But
It
they're
does help.
convinced. They're convinced there's something. It's just not but they're just not enough. They're just not. There's not enough proof for them to say, yeah, we've seen it. But the funny thing is, there was multiple of them, of different kinds of guys too. You might have like the tough guy over there, and you might have an athletic one, and they all kind of have the same freaking, which we always thought was odd. But great show, dude. You got a lot of other people who want to get on, but nice chatting with you.
Hey, yeah, and is this a conversation I can use on the show as well, Scott?
Yeah, man.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for coming up. I appreciate it.
All right, dude. Talk to you.
Good stuff, man. Oh, Scott's a good guy from up there. You can tell. Hey, hey, Shasha, how are you?
I am nervous.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So I can't hear myself? The first time I've ever been live on TikTok.
I can hear you, though.
Okay. All right. So I'm from Long Island, New York. Very flat, surrounded by water. Nothing going on here. Maybe occasional red fox here and there. This is in 2015. My husband got a job offer to go to Washington State to help build a restaurant with people that lived in Washington State, in Aberdeen, actually. And so we met the husband and wife. We became very good friends, and they were showing us around Washington all the time. Great people. The wife of the restaurant owner, she's pretty powerful woman. So anyway, so she lives on Lake Whitney in Washington State. So she's, I brought up the subject of Bigfoot because I was always interested, because I'm a child of the 70s when Bogey Creek came out, and me and my sisters were always like a little freaked out by it, and interested. So I had dropped my husband off at Seattle airport, and she invited me up to Quinault for dinner. I had her adopted daughter with me, who was 7, and my daughter, who was 11 at the time. And we were driving up Highway 101. It was like 5 o'clock. Sun was just starting to go down a little bit. It was lightly raining. And it was, like I said, Highway 101. I don't know if you've ever been on that road. It's a logging road.
Yep.
I'm driving up there with my New York plates, going really slow, very intimidated. And I'm driving, and I was actually on the phone with my friend from New York, and I was on speakerphone with her, and the 2 kids are in the back of my Nissan Murano, and I noticed something that just didn't looked out of place with my peripheral vision on my right-hand side. I was like, what was that? It was like enormous in width. And it was very, very, textured and reddish. So I took my foot off the gas, and I was gonna dismiss it because I thought I was just seeing something, but I saw just in my windshield, his torso. So I took my foot off the gas, and I was gonna dismiss it, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and my daughter's eyes were as big as saucers, and she gasped. She said, "Mom, did you see that?" And I just wanted to, I guess she must have saw more than I did. So we get up to Lake Quinault, and of course my friend is 100% native, and she did not dismiss it. She said she has smelt it on the reservation, but in Native American folklore, they say never to turn around or look at it. She said, but she has smelt it. And she was like, well, I guess you're not going home tonight. And I'm like, no, I'm staying at your place.
Right.
Now, and at the time, my daughter, who's very chatty, just shut down. She just shut down, would not talk about it. So now the next day we go home, and I sat down quietly with her, And she told me on the left side, whatever I saw with my right in my peripheral vision in my windshield, I just saw it like its torso. Excuse me. She said on the left-hand side, there were two of them. And she thought they were hunters at first. She said, but they turned around and it looked at her. And she said, Mommy, I saw its soul. Like, that was the words of an 11-year-old, which was pretty... Let me get out. My dog is barking. Let me go in here. So, what else? So it was just, I'm a little nervous telling the story. And it was like, 10 years ago. But then, asking around and asking conservationists, men, and talking to police, they were like, you're not the first person to have an encounter here. And they appreciated the story, but my life is changed since that. That creature exists.
100%. So
Mhm.
I want to clarify something.
Sure.
So you said that your daughter said that she saw its soul.
That's what she said. She said it looked at her. Now there was two apparently on her side, which was my driver's side. I was looking to my right when I saw that torso in my windshield. So when I was looking briefly to the right, she was looking left. So there must have been three of them. Like maybe it was just a road crossing and it hurt my car and it stopped. The third one didn't cross, whatever. But she said it turned its head and it looked right dead at her. She said, and his eyes were just black. And she said, and I saw its soul. Those were her words of an 11-year-old. I saw its soul.
That is such an interesting way to put it. I've never had anyone say that. It would be really interesting. I don't know if you've ever asked her what she meant by that statement.
I think she almost had almost like a telepathic encounter, because she had such a good look at them. Not like I did. I just got a peripheral, textured something. I was like, because at first I thought it was a telephone pole, and I was like, that's too thick. It's too broad. And like I said, I was going to dismiss it until my daughter said, Mom, did you see that? And I was like, oh, so I thought she was seeing the one that I was looking at, but they were on the opposite side of the road, the ones that she saw. And she's 21 years old right now. And I always figured she'd come out one day and say, Mom, I was joking around, but she tells that story to everybody. So do I, for years and years. And it was incredible. And it was mile marker 114. I'll never forget that.
Oh, wow. So you know the exact mile marker as well.
Yes,
that's really awesome.
Because as I drove away, I said, just in case something happens, I need to know. My grandfather always taught me that. Look at your mile markers when you're traveling.
Yep.
So, and I looked it up. I think it's Tulips. I think that's the city.
Okay. How has this affected you since?
Well, I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I have 3 older sisters, and they were like, I think everybody believes me. I think, they're like, tell your story. It has affected me. I've become every podcast that's out there, every book, every story I read, always just like, it's fascinating. It's really fascinating. And like I said, I was always waiting for my daughter to say, oh, I was just kidding around. But she told a teacher at school when she came back to New York, because we moved back a year later. And, but she really couldn't speak for days, which is, like I said, my daughter is very gabby. And she just could not she shut down. She shut down for a while. Like, you know, I guess she felt a little shameful. I don't know, or just maybe in shock. You know, because that night she's like, "We're not driving home, Mom." I'm like, "No, I'm not going to drive home."
Right. Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
Uh
What
huh.
a fascinating encounter because both of you were able to have a sighting.
Yeah.
At, it's very very unique, and I want to say thank you so much for sharing what you experienced.
Oh, you're welcome.
Is this a conversation that I can use on my Bigfoot podcast that I have?
All right. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
You're
Thank you for that. Well, I appreciate you
welcome.
coming up, man.
Thank you.
Man, what an account. Looks like that area she's talking about is about halfway between Quinault and Aberdeen, and it is a very, very small community, about 236 individuals. Hey, Joel, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Oh, just having a good night, hanging out.
Yeah, I always love hearing all the stories.
Same here.
I'm kind of one of those that I feel kind of either blessed or cursed because I've had a couple of encounters. I shared one with you, which was the one where we actually had a visual sighting, my entire family in
Uh-huh.
southeast Georgia.
Yep.
But actually, I've had in that same area. This is in it's near I won't say near, it's actually our hunting property is in Kite, Georgia, which is just a little bit north or yeah, northeast of Adrian, Georgia, which is just off of I-16. We had the visual sighting, and this occurred, oh gosh, probably about 4 years ago, where my both my boys are, you know, they're grown now. Well, I say grown, they're 23 and 28, but they were with me. We were down there at our hunting property, and one night goofing around, we had all been watching, the oh gosh, what was the Bigfoot show? The one with oh
Oh,
gosh, I'm
like
drawing a
finding
blank.
Bigfoot.
Finding Bigfoot, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah. And when I say rural, there's probably Kite, Georgia probably has 500 people in in that area as far as residents. Adrian probably 1,800. So very very rural. I mean, we hunt on three different tracts of land that we have that we have a permission to that are 78 acres, another one's 79, and the other one's over split between two tracks at back to back that are probably right around 200 acres. And we've had some unusual things happen, but this one occasion was probably the weirdest thing we've ever had as far as being out there. We've always heard unusual owl calls, you hear the bobcat screams, coyote yells,
Hmm.
and kind of you just get used to it, but it sets you on edge. But one night we were sitting on this little stoop of it's an old house built back in the 50s, and kidding around. I was kidding with my oldest son, and he's like, I'm gonna do one of those whoops. And I at first was kind of reluctant. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, whatever. And he he did this, I would say, more of a guttural whoop that was just like better than anything I could have done. I mean, I mimicked the guys from the Bigfoot show, and
Right.
we were kidding around, but he did his, and from across. And when I say across the road, the house sits probably 100 yards from the road. There's a pond to the right, and then it's nothing but woods behind us that flows all the way down to a river. And we heard something start to crash through the woods coming up towards us. And when I say crash, I mean the intensity of what we heard, like limbs breaking, and almost like you could hear a bipedal motion of stomping as it ran towards us. It literally came up to the road sits up on an embankment, and it sounded like you could hear it just land onto the roadside, and it just had this piercing kind of I don't know if scream's the right word, or yell, but
Mm.
it just let out this horrendous yell, or it was not a whoop, it was more of a scream. And the three of us froze, kind of sitting there wondering, okay, what did we just call up? And the entire evening, it felt like we were being just surrounded. I mean, like you could hear movement on two different sides of the house. Of course, we couldn't hear anything behind us because we're sitting on the front stoop of this little bitty home, but you could hear movement going through. And how the best way to describe this property is, of course, it's South Georgia, so it's nothing but tall timber and tall pines. It's nothing but pine trees that was just literally devastated this past year by Hurricane Milton and Helene. But you could hear it come up between us and the pond, and we kept hearing. I, I wouldn't say it sounded more like a grunt, but you could hear movement coming up each side of us. And to the left, facing the road to the left, is an old creek bed that, in part of that area of the front yard, goes down into almost like a marsh, but it's a very small marshland. And you could hear something moving around it coming up to the left, where we could constantly hear something moving through the scrub brush between us and the pond coming up to the right. And of course, my oldest son, he's kind of the wild child, and my youngest is going, "Shut up, quit, stop." And he would kind of, I don't want to say antagonize it, but tended to antagonize or let out another whoop, and you would hear more rustling.
Mm.
Now, at first, I thought, okay, this is. I tried to explain it off coyotes because we have tons of coyotes down there, bobcats. It's South rural Georgia, so you've got plenty of coyote and bobcats. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting a little nervous talking about it, but it was such an unusual encounter that's the first time I literally, because having my two sons with me, I got up, grabbed my shotgun, walked off the porch because we have no ambient light outside of the house, and walked towards where I heard something moving there's a large area that has blueberry bushes and large scrub brush that goes down towards the pond. I walked straight towards it with my shotgun, pumped it once, and just said, "That's enough. If somebody's here, make yourself known." And it went dead silent. I mean, to the point, literally, it was like eerily just no movement, nothing moved, nothing was heard. But that was, I only decided to tell this one story because of the encounter we had, gosh, 15 years earlier, probably 40 miles south of there, which is where we saw the crossing.
Right. Right. Exactly. Oh my goodness. Man, I'm trying to put myself in this situation, but yeah, I mean, you had your kids there. Um, you're on high alert.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of different, we've hunted the same property. I've been hunting it since I'm 55. I started hunting there when I got out of the Air Force in the early 90s. We've had some strange encounters, me and my buddy whose family owns the property. He no longer hunts there, but we have permission to continue hunting. But we've had uh, several in strange encounters that have just really piqued my curiosity of what's in that area. And we've had years where there's been nothing, and then we've had 2 or 3 years in a row where we've had such unusual encounters. Like one time, which would have been, oh gosh, this would have been in the mid '90s. I had I had killed a doe, cleaned it, drug off the remainder of the carcass, carried it down into some scrub brush, and this is probably from the house that I'm describing from the first encounter is probably half a mile through the woods, but a mile and a half on roadway. We had left that evening, went into town, went and had dinner, came back, and it was me and my my buddy, who of course had whose family that owns all of this land. We we were pulling back up, and we were in my Jeep, and another friend of ours is in the back seat, and he's like, turn down the music, and I was like, I don't have the stereo on. And as we pulled into this is an old, this house was built over 100 something years ago. It's now been torn down. And this is the primary area that we currently hunt. We pulled up and we heard this chattering, like almost an unusual noises. Like I won't say unusual noises. It just sounded like chattering. And when I got out of the Jeep and we went to kind of go around the house, I pulled out my flashlight. I had my gun. We immediately go around and we hear this literally a blood curdling scream. And we hear something just tear off down towards the pond that is on this property. And you could hear it crashing through the woods, running. We basically wound up just curling back up towards the house and trying to calm all of our nerves, and didn't hear anything else. The next morning, we go over to where I had drugged the carcass into the woods, which was just the skeletal remains and the the innards of the deer, and they were strewn, and part of the deer was completely removed and gone. So anyway, don't know. And I mean, bobcats are pretty, agile and able to do a lot, but I've never seen them carry off that much of a carcass that quickly. Not in one evening.
There is some man, you have experienced some weird stuff down in Georgia. That's for sure, Joel. My goodness. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing that.
my pleasure.
Um,
Yeah, no.
is this a conversation I could also put on the podcast?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for coming up again. And of course, thank you for supporting as well. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
Absolutely. Appreciate all you do.
All right. You have a good one, sir.
You too.
Hello, Bob.
Hello,
How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I was
What
going
brings
to
you
tell
up tonight?
you, I talked to you several nights ago,
Mm-hmm.
but I remembered back when I was 11 years old, I was duck hunting with my father and his best friend in Springville Bottom, Tennessee, and they were getting ready to put the boat into the water. And I was just wandering around, and I looked with my flashlight, and I found a track that had like 4 or 5 toes. It's been so long I can't remember exactly how many. And this was in like the middle of January, and so there were spots of snow around. And I looked and I saw this track, and I called my dad. He came over and we looked at it, and then just a couple of minutes later, we heard the most hideous scream out of the woods a little ways from us, and the best I can describe the scream was it was all like something dying, but it screamed for like 30 seconds and then it went silent, and we just stood there looking at each other. And then we got in our boat and went duck hunting. But I got to thinking after I talked to you the other day that there's been 2 or 3 times when I'd be deer hunting out in the woods and I would have the same smell fill my nostrils, and I would look and I would hunt for the source of the smell, and I could never find it. But it would seem like I was right on top of it, but I never did pinpoint where it was at. And after a few minutes, it would seem like it would just dissipate and go away.
Huh. And you said this is in Tennessee, Bob?
Yes, West Tennessee.
That's right, West Tennessee. Some really, really interesting stories. Thank you for coming up again and for sharing some more things you've experienced over the years.
Sure.
Do you mind if I use this conversation on the show, Bob?
Of course.
All right. Well, thank you for coming up, sir.
No problem.
Hey, Barb, how's it going?
Good. How's it going with
What
you?
brings you up?
Way northern Wisconsin. Driving home one night around 2 a.m. in the middle of nowhere. Nowhere. No homes, no nothing. Just a deep, dark back road. And yeah, there was something on the side of the road. And I think I may have sent you something about this. It was very big, very hairy, 2 a.m. And it was wearing a flannel shirt and blue jeans.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Freaked me out. Oh yeah. It was really, yeah. I didn't slow down, didn't stop, but there was hair everywhere. I mean, the face, the hands, but blue jeans and a flannel shirt. What?
Yeah, it's it's a thing where you don't hear about it a lot, but there's a book called Where the Footprints End, which is a good collection of like really weird Bigfoot stuff and kind of maybe even paranormal stuff. And there's a whole section about sightings where there's been encounters and they seem to be wearing some sort of clothing like that. It's very strange.
Right. And the face I'm seeing behind you was the face I saw. I mean, there was hair everywhere from the hands to the head. Yeah, it was really bizarre. And I'm the one that did see monkeys on the road too. And listen, I'm 65 years old. I've lived in this area for 40 years. And I was a dental assistant. You know, I'm somewhat normal, I guess. I don't know. But yeah. So I've seen some interesting things up here. I'm right now at my grandparents' cabin, way far more in the middle of nowhere. And my sister spent the last night here, and she said that she was looking out towards the west, and she heard something that she'd never heard before. And there were two deer chasing it. She saw something that was like, oh, I don't know if you can see, my hair is kind of brown.
Mm-hmm.
But the hair color on whatever it was the deer were chasing was darker than my hair. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was something the deer were chasing. Couldn't be a wolf or a coyote. I mean, I don't know what the hell it was. But yeah, there's some weird stuff that goes on in the woods.
Yeah,
Lots.
absolutely. You know, Wisconsin really does have a lot of weird stuff, especially up in the north. That area, like where you had the sighting of the one that was
Mhm.
wearing clothing, are you able to share the area that sighting was in, or is that we can keep that
Oh,
not public as well? That's fine.
I mean, it was in, let's see, Washburn County,
Okay.
Wisconsin. And it was on, I don't want to say the road. You know, I don't want a lot of people going there,
Yeah,
I
you don't have
guess.
to.
Yeah. No, that's
Okay,
fine. But
Washburn. And what was the approximate year on that again?
2013, I want to
Okay,
say.
gotcha.
Right. Yep. And like I say, um, there may be a game farm around here because I had a peacock on my deck, and I've seen monkeys on the roads. So if you look that up, you can kind of see, who is in that area. You looking it up?
Hmm. It's interesting. Yeah, there are a few safari parks up there too. I'm noticing.
Right, right. And it, it may have, like I say, it may have been something that had escaped. I don't know. I have no idea. And what the being was that I saw on the road at 2 a.m. It freaked me out. There's no way I was going to stop. I wasn't going to stop and, see, do you want help? Because there was no homes, there was nothing around.
It's some wild stuff. It might help explain the monkeys you saw, but it does not explain what
No.
you saw wearing clothing for sure. I mean,
Right,
that's something completely different, right? But
right,
my
right.
goodness,
Yep. And I don't drink or do drugs, so I,
gotcha.
I don't.
Right, right, right. There you go. Yeah, Wisconsin's got some weird stuff. Well, it was good talking to you. Thank you for coming up and for sharing that. I do
You
remember
bet.
the email you sent me now.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. All right. Take care.
Is this a conversation I can use for the show as well, Barb?
Of course. Of course.
All right. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
Good stuff. Wisconsin is weird. Hey, Jesse, how's it going?
Oh, hey, I didn't even know it was on. Hi. So, yeah, I told my story on here before about driving and seeing a Bigfoot run across the road. And, I mean, it's the only thing you could describe it as is a Bigfoot. I've seen bears all my life, mountain lions. I grew up in Plymouth National Forest and also off grid up in there. And it's part of the Sierra Mountains. But and then years and years later, me and my brother, not too long ago, had an encounter. We didn't get to see it, but we heard it in the snow. It was about like 2 feet of snow, and I was doing like some whooping noises, and it was making some weird. I can't even repeat what it was doing. It was just really deep and almost like it was trying to talk. And my brother was getting nervous and scared, but he just wanted to run up the road a little bit with his dog. And then that's when I heard it. Just it sounded like an elephant stomping through the snow up the hill towards me. So I started yelling for my brother, and he starts flying back down to the car, and he's like, let's go, I'm not doing this no more, let's go. And then we left. But I have a couple questions for you. What got you into this? Did you see one? I'm just really curious.
Oh, yeah, I can talk about that for a minute. So, really, what I watched a lot of old shows with my dad growing up about Bigfoot and unsolved mysteries and stuff. And then during, well, right before 2020, I was like, hey, I should start a podcast. And then it was the right time to start it. And then about 2 years ago, I made it focused primarily on talking to people about Bigfoot. And it just kind of really escalated from there because I realized there's a lot of people that um, really just need to share what they've experienced, and not a lot of people are willing to listen. Um, so that's really what it turned into, and it's been a really wild ride so far. So
Have you ever went out looking for one?
yeah, a few times I have. I go to um, a place in Iowa where I'm from, and it's pretty active. We've heard wood knocks and whoops, and um, got trees got pushed over.
Oh
Um,
wow.
there's been a few sightings in the area, and I went to a place in Oregon a few times, and we got roared and screamed out there. It's pretty wild. I haven't had a visual yet, um, but uh, but it's just I've had a lot of really other weird things happen so far. So
I'm telling you, when you do get a sighting, it's gonna shake you down to your core, man.
yeah, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
ready for it, you know. So it's you kind of if you can get prepared for it, but sometimes you don't even get that luxury, you know.
like you don't even know how it's really going to react to you if it's close enough. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's the scary
Absolutely.
part. You know, the way it moved across the road wasn't like a human. It was more like a wild animal, or like the way a deer moves across, like just float. The way it just flowed across the road, like so natural and so fast, but it was so big.
Mm.
It was weirdest thing I've ever seen. And yeah, I watched the Bob Giblin film and stuff like that when I was a kid, and I was always interested in it, and was like hoping it was out there, but I didn't really think it was going to be out there. But man, it scared the crap out of me when I seen it. And I do have the video footage on YouTube of right after we seen it, the
Hmm.
reaction of the kid, like screaming, like we seen it too. I got out of the car. I was trying to look for prints, but it was like the ground was so solid that you couldn't really see too much. But I found one spot that, I mean, if you pause it there and just look at it, you can see the outline of a huge foot. And the tree that it ran
Mm.
past, I thought it was smaller Bigfoot, you know. But the tree that it went past, I went up to that tree. It was like 12 feet height, and so that thing had to been like 10 feet tall, no problem. And
Absolutely. Wow. Some wild stuff, dude. Jesse, I appreciate you coming up. Thanks for asking me a few questions. It's good talking to you again, man.
hey, man, you too. All right, bye.
Good stuff. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.